We're just going to wait another minute before we get started. Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so we are going to get started here. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our program COVID-19. The time is now to teach your dog to live well when alone. My name is Alexandra Dilley and I am the Behavior and Training Director at the Humane Rescue Alliance. The Humane Rescue Alliance protects animals, supports families, and advocates for positive change to create a world where all animals can thrive. We enrich the humanity of our communities by promoting compassion and encouraging people to find joy, comfort, and companionship through the love and appreciation of animals. In July 2019, the Humane Rescue Alliance and St. Hubert's Animal Welfare Center of Madison, New Jersey merged to create the first regional, community-based, multi-state animal welfare organization in the nation. We have multiple shelter and community program locations throughout Washington, D.C. and New Jersey. I'm honored today to introduce our speaker, Tracy Krulik. Tracy is a Northern Virginia-based certified canine separation anxiety trainer and honors graduate of Gene Donaldson's prestigious Academy for Dog Trainers. She is also the founder and managing editor of I Speak Dog, a website and public awareness campaign to teach dog body language and behavior. Tracy trains dogs with separation anxiety for the Humane Rescue Alliance and does so remotely, so she is able to consult for clients around the world. I would like to let everyone know that you are currently muted, but there will be a question and answer period at the end, and we want to hear from you. You can type your question in the Q&A box, and if you have any technical difficulties, you can use the chat box, which will come to the host and panelists. Questions will be moderated and will not be immediately visible for everyone to see. A recording of the webinar will be posted to humanerescuealliance.org, and we encourage you to share it afterwards. Tracy, thanks so much for joining us, and I will turn it over to you now. Let me just spotlight you here.
All right. Hi, thanks so much for everybody coming out today. I hope you are all safe and well. And I've got my Nats championship mug and ready to talk about separation anxiety stuff with all the craziness going on. So let's jump into what the heck is happening in the world right now. So there's a lot changing for all of us, and our dogs are included in that. Obviously, some of the things that are different. The whole family is home now, right? So much more than before, most likely. That means there's a lot more noise and activity in the house. There might be family members who have gotten sick or are simply worried or stressed out. Our routines are different. We're less predictable to the dogs. So what they were comfortable doing before and knowing before is not happening quite so much the same as it did prior. We have family members spending more time with pets, which kind of goes back to the, tying back to whole family is home. Perhaps in the past, while the parents were out at work and the kids were at school, the dogs were snoozing or playing or working on their Kongs. But now there's somebody always playing with them or being with them. A lot of dogs are seeing increased or reduced exercise. So in some cases, it's difficult for folks to get out. And so their dogs aren't getting nearly the same amount of walks or playtime that they did before. In other cases, every time a family person wants to go out for a walk, they grab the dog. And so these guys are multiplying how much walking they're out with the family. And of course, our dogs that love and need to spend time with other dogs, that in many cases is highly reduced, much less off-leash time. So we're going to take a look at how all of that relates to separation anxiety and separation-related problems. But I want to just make sure that we're all wearing the right hat when we think about these issues. Rather than honing in on separation anxiety, which is traditionally what most people have done when a dog is barking or having accidents, whatever, when they're home alone. Now we are broadening our thinking on these issues, and we're thinking more as an umbrella of separation-related problems than just anxiety. So sure, we do have many dogs who are scared to be alone, who don't have the coping skills to handle being alone. But there are also a lot of dogs who aren't scared, are just bored. And unfortunately, boredom over time can lead to anxiety and fear. So it's something we have to really take care of. A lot of the dogs that we've traditionally believed to be scared are frustrated. And it, rather than being afraid to be alone in the home, they, I can't do this by myself. I can't be here alone. They're more frustrated. I want to go out there. I want to be where my people are. I want to be where those dogs are. I want to be chasing those bicycles or whatever it is that the dogs do. And so it can be very frustrating. And so thinking only of anxiety, treating only anxiety doesn't necessarily help these kinds of dogs who are really just frustrated. There are a lot of elimination problems, urination and other accidents in the house that are not related to separation anxiety or frustration, that it could be a simple house training. It could be a physical issue. It could be anxiety. It could be a symptom of that, but like I say, it could be something else. I worked with a dog this past year who, retired greyhound, had been fine home alone for years and years and years. He really he felt comfortable in his crate. That was his happy place. But suddenly over the past year, he kept having accidents. And so I got some information and I said, well, first things first, he's 10 years old, I think he was. He's slowed down on his walks. He's not so eager to go out with the dog walkers anymore. How are his legs? How are his joints? And so my client took him to the vet. Lo and behold, he had some injuries to his hips. They put him on some medications to help with that. And the accidents in the crate completely went away. So, so we need to really look at the whole picture when we want to make sure our dogs are okay being home alone. So let's drill down specifically on how these issues of being home during the coronavirus lockdown, how that relates to these separation issues. So reduced or no alone time. We know that one of the major triggers for separation anxiety is dogs who are not left alone for a considerable amount of time and then suddenly find themselves alone. And I am hearing from dog trainers and from clients that dogs who, both some dogs who never had issues before and some dogs who are clients, past clients of mine, who were recovered from their separation issues, now are suddenly, surprisingly to them, becoming more anxious overall and becoming more, barking more when people leave, even if it's just to go get the mail or something, chewing at the door, that kind of stuff. So we need to take a look at making sure that we give our dogs enough experience being alone when they're home now, when we're home with them now, so that they can cope with this better. If they're never given any time to be doing stuff on their own in the house right now, because there's so many people around, or in our situation, my husband and I are both working from home and our schedules don't always line up. So when it's time for me to go out and go for a walk or go for a jog or something without the dog, Tom's working, or vice versa. If he's going to go do our grocery shopping, I'm working. And so Emma the Beagle she's got people with her all the time. So we need to look at that. Increased frustration, reactivity. Things can build up during the day. So if you find that your dog is guarding food more, is guarding locations, growling when people come up to the couch, or growling when he's got a toy or food or something. And this is happening more and more, or people are, the kids are running over to play with the dog and the dog is either running away or is growling, barking at people outside. Things are starting to heat up and we want to work to lower that. We want to help these dogs feel better overall. It could also be fears that are building. So maybe before they weren't home when the vacuum cleaner was running. Maybe they were at doggy daycare, but now they're home and that vacuum is scaring them, and various things are happening during the day that's scaring them on top of it. And it just like the frustration, it builds and builds, and they feel more stress as the day goes on. There are also risks of too much exercise. One is we could be setting them up to become bored or have new expectations after the lockdown ends. If they're used to, in the previous time that they were getting a couple walks a day, but now they're getting 5, 7, 10 walks a day. They're getting their exercise, their enjoyment with us all the time. So we then leave them to go back to work when the world, opens back up for real, and they just don't necessarily have the skills. They're like, well, okay, where are the rest of my walks today? They start to expect this kind of stuff, and why wouldn't they, right? They could, all these walks could also exacerbate injuries, cause them pain if the dog is older, or, even Emma was young when we discovered that she had arthritis. So be on the lookout, make sure you're not seeing your dog slowing down on walks, limping a little bit. You want to keep an eye out for that with all that exercise. And there's one other thing that that might be an issue is if you're uncomfortable taking your dog to the vet right now, because you're needing to quarantine yourself, or you're just wanting to be safe, it's possible that we could see an increase of health issues after this is over. I'm not sure about that. Our veterinary practice that we take our dog to is soaring with clients right now. So with patients right now. So I think people are actually using their time well and saying, all right, let's get those issues resolved. But just kind of, keep this in the back of your mind. One other thing. So for those of you who have adopted your dogs during the lockdown, or you're fostering a dog during the lockdown, your dog may or may not have any experience being left home alone, right? And so we're going to work today to help you give your dog the skills so that when you do end up leaving to go to work, hopefully we've minimized problems or gotten rid of them entirely. So my approach is I like to throw the kitchen sink at the whole thing. So we can do all of it. We can do some of it. What I recommend is understanding all of the various ways that you can help your dog in all of these components that fit under that umbrella. But really, you're going to pick and choose what works for you. Some of it makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Some of it's like, let me table that for now. I'll deal with that down the road if I feel like we need to add a little bit more. But we're going to look at, I'm going to talk about all this stuff, and then you'll be able to determine which course you want to go for your dog. So let's start with the basics and the basis of everything that we're ever going to do when we train our dogs, when we live with our dogs. It all is about body language. We have to read our dog's body language to have a conversation with them, to know that they're okay or they're not okay. So these images that I have up here come from the website, our website, ispeakdog.org. And what you're seeing here is at the bottom, these are dogs without any kind of stress. Their bodies are loose, they're relaxed, their mouth is loose and soft and slightly open. Their eyes are really soft and gentle. Their ears are kind of floppy. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want to see in our dogs as much as possible. Then we start moving into we're moving towards stress. And when we see a paw raised, they're licking their lips, they're yawning, they're pulling away a bit, we're starting to worry. Dogs like, I don't know, kind of like biting our nails, which we're not doing now because we're not supposed to touch our faces. But if we were, that would be a similar kind of thing. And then at the top we have, we're way over pushing our dog over where they're comfortable. So if they're just tail tucked, making themselves really small, or we're seeing a lot of eye whites, teeth, the jaws tight, bodies tight, growling, barking, snapping, lunging, all that kind of stuff, we've gone too far. So we want to, as much as possible, stay underneath this green line. We want to always be looking for that. If you have other questions about body language, go to ispeakdog.org. There's a whole gallery of images that show dogs when they're feeling stressed, when they're not feeling stressed, and it'll help you to understand, kind of crack the code of what your dog is saying to you. So things to look at now. I am going to be, we're going to be emailing you all this spreadsheet. I work with so many spreadsheets. This PowerPoint as a PDF, so you'll be able to read all of this stuff in detail. I'm not going to read every word, but I just want you to look for, so when it comes to separation issues, some of the big things you're looking for is your dog following you more before, room to room to room constantly. Is she pressing her body against you, sitting on family members more, that kind of stuff? Is she stopping people from actually leaving the house or the room by barking or lunging or whatever? Those are your top three. Okay, we're really starting to see some issues with some separation and independence problems. The rest of this stuff, just keep an eye on it: growling, snarling, spinning, chasing tail, changes in behavior when interacting with your family, various stuff like that. Take a look at this after you get the slides to really read it through, and just be on the lookout for this stuff. If you are seeing trends of a lot of these things, that's a good time to talk to your vet, to talk to a trainer, to reach out to the behavior team at HRA. We have trainers that can help out. All right, so let's get down to what are we going to do now? How do we help our dogs? The first thing we want to do is give them some structure in the day. I don't have children, but my friends who do, I'm so impressed with the way that they have structured their day now for themselves and for their kids. They set aside, the kids see on the wall, okay, this is when we have classroom time, this is when we have study time, like practice time, this is when we have a little PE, this is when we have nap time, this is when we do lunch. Here's when you can just chill and watch the iPad for a little bit. So they've really structured the day for the kids, and our dogs could, really need this too. So if you're going to go, if you're working from home, make that time maybe where your dog gets a Kong or a ball or something where they get some food. So, oh, it's work time. We're going to do something like that. Figure out, if you always walk your dog once or twice a day, aiming, we're hoping for 2 or 3 times a day, ideally. Try not to do the 5 to 10 to 20 walks a day so that your dog has to jump on the top of the cabinet so as not to have to go on another walk. Try to stay kind of similar to the routine that you do. If your dog is only able to, on normal days, during normal times, get a couple hours of, lying in the yard or out on the porch or something time, maybe it's not the best idea to just leave the door open for them all day long, because they might get used to that. They might not. It might not affect them at all. So it's really, every person's an individual, every dog's an individual. So it's going to have to be some trial and error, but just kind of have this stuff in your mind. Am I allowing my dog to have the skills so that when I go back to work, she's going to succeed? Find some playtime, grab the toys, play some tug, play catch, run around, teach them how to catch a Frisbee and bring it back to you, stuff like that. If they're not getting that time that they normally do going at the dog park, let's find other ways to give them some outlets. See if you can give them some quiet time during the day. Kids, when it's time for you to study, let's go in another room and let's let Foxy, I don't know, have some quiet time as well. And of course, some alone time. It's hard for Tom and me to find time every single day. So we're having to schedule it to find time when I'm not working and he's not working. And it's not time that we owe Emma a walk, because we do. She still needs to have some time with us as well. So we're having to coordinate each day. Okay, we're going to, let's make some time for her to be alone today. One thing I think is really important for all dogs, and can really help us in this goal of teaching our dogs, giving our dogs independence time, is by creating a safe haven for them, a place that is their own. You want it to be a quiet spot out of the way. So it could be a crate, it could be a mat, it could be a bed, something comfy. You want it to be a place that they're going to want to go to. It's their little nook. You want it to be away from potentially scary sounds. So not necessarily in the laundry room next to the dryer, where your dog is scared of the sounds of the washer and dryer, if possible, not under a window where they can hear thunder and loud sounds outside. I mean, it's, in DC, if a lot of us live in the DC area here, we got a lot of open floor plan homes. So it's not so easy to say, okay, it'll be, I can find the mudroom is perfect and whatever it may be. We have to be a little creative. You're not necessarily going to be able to find that perfect place. So just make whatever place you have, it's a place for your dog, her home, his home, place where he's really, really comfy and happy. And it's not a place where your dog already goes when scared. So if your dog is, like, say, afraid of thunder and immediately runs to the bathroom and tail tucked is cowering when it's scary outside, when it's thundering outside, that's not where we're going to set up the bed. We want a place that doesn't have any association with negativity. Why do we want to do this? We need our dogs to have coping skills, to feel safe, whether we're with them or not. And a research group in the University of Lincoln in England has found that by giving dogs this safe haven, even dogs who have fears that are incredibly difficult to overcome, like sound phobia, even during a thunderstorm, dogs that have this safe haven are able to cope and handle it, even if the folks aren't there. They're in their safe haven, they can deal. It's a place for them to rest undisturbed. So when we're trying to find some quiet time where the kids aren't going to be like running in and out and other animals aren't going to be like bothering them and stuff, Setting aside that place right now for them where they can go and snooze peacefully, big win. It's also a place where they can enjoy some alone time. So if we give them food toys there, if we give them their favorite bone or chew or something, that is, now they are independent of us having a good time. And we need that for them right now. We need it always. We especially need it now. So how do we make our dogs fall in love with their safe haven? You know, to start, it's basically crate training, but really thinking what's the coziest way to make this, right? We're not thinking I'm crate training my dog to teach him not to, you know, where to go to the bathroom. And I'm not doing it to create a place to put him in timeout. I'm creating a place for them to feel super comfy and safe. So during the day, hide delicious food in there when your dog's not looking. So your dog discovers it on her own throughout the day. When she is already happily walking over there and having good feelings because she kept finding yummy food in there, now you can start asking her to go in, toss some treats, have her go in it, let her come out. Little by little, you're going to increase the length of time inside the safe haven and go incrementally. If it's a crate, you're going to go incrementally with that as well. How fast can you go? You're going to read her body language to know. So here's a video on a dog getting crate trained, similar process, perhaps even a little bit slower than this. There are some moments in here where I see that the dog's a little tail tucky, but eventually you'll see at the end, the body language gets that is a bouncy, happy pup. This video came from I Speak Dog as well. So we have videos on there as well. So if you want to go back and look at other body language videos, you'll find them there. Little tail wag there. So with this is that moment where I'm like, is this dog feeling comfortable? Like, you know, I might go a little bit slower, tail's a little tucked, body's a little hunched over. But then he stays in there. So, you know, let the dog vote with his feet. He's certainly making a choice that I'm okay. Now he's a pro. So I like that video to show you that you don't always just have to use food to give dogs a positive association with something. Play is just as powerful. And that dog, hope you were able to see the difference in the body language from the beginning to the end. That is one dog who is very happy in there. Few points on safe haven. Each dog in your home needs to have their own safe haven. It's not something they share. You don't want to send your dog there in a form of punishment. You're not going to time out your dog in that safe haven. I personally don't use timeouts all that frequently. If I do, I usually have myself exit the room or the person exit the room rather than putting the dog into something. But definitely do not use this safe haven as a place to do timeouts. No one, as I said, should approach the dog when he or she is in there, and don't physically remove your dog. Your dog needs to be able to come out on his or her own. So call him out, use food to lure him out if you need him out, but it's got to be their choice. Okay, let's briefly talk about enrichment before we get into some alone time training. So enrichment is how our dogs enjoy themselves if they're allowed to be dogs. In the wild, animals spend their entire day hunting for food, digging for food, burying things, dissecting, shaking, doing all the things that they do with when we play tug with them, when we throw things to them. And animals in the zoo are fed out of toys 100% of the time. It's considered negligence if we do anything but feed zoo animals out of toys, because they need to have that enrichment. Just like we need to read books or go for a run or watch TV or go to a baseball game, dogs chew, hunt, sniff, dig. This is what they do. It also gives them something fun to do without us. So if we use food toys to feed our dogs, if we give them games that they can do on their own, it means, once again, we're building up that independence that's so important. It can also protect us against boredom. So if you leave to go to work all day and your dog doesn't have any enrichment opportunities, they can become bored out of their minds, and that boredom in time can become really aversive and scary. And now we do have a dog who's afraid to be alone. So by giving them food toys, by using enrichment opportunities, we can protect against our dogs being bored. And it also gives our dogs something to chew besides our stuff. So how do we do it? In a perfect world, you're not feeding your dog out of a bowl anymore. You're giving your dog food out of various toys and games. You want to start super duper easy so that they can win, so that they can learn what the game is, and then build gradually, make it harder. You want to use a variety of toys and games, and you can make them, you can purchase them yourself. My little friend Linus is modeling a snuffle mat, which is, if you Google snuffle mat or how to make a snuffle mat, if you want something crafty to do during the lockdown, this is super easy to make, and dogs just absolutely love it. You take the kibble or whatever, if you're feeding your dog hard food, it goes underneath the pieces of fabric as opposed to in a bowl, and the dog has to use his nose to sniff out the food. Some other choices, Kongs are great, but I find people like, well, I just put the kibble in it and he was done in like 2 seconds. Well, yeah, the kibble's going to fall out. So we need to layer it, put some peanut butter in there, then a layer of kibble, maybe a layer of chicken and some cheese, cover the top with some more peanut butter. We want to layer it in there, start loose, pack it in harder as they get better and better at it. Eventually you can freeze it so that so that it takes them a really long time. If you have wet food, if your dog eats wet food, you can use a licky mat where you just spread the food over that and they eat from there. I love treat dispensing balls. This is my favorite for starting out, is the monster ball. You just put the kibble in there and dog has to roll it around and squish it and stuff, and the food comes out. That's on the easy side. In this video, Moo, one of my good friends, her dog Moo, is hunting out a very easy game that her mom made for her at home, which is just her food in each of the little muffin spots and some balls on top, just to make her work for it a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about legit anxiety now, legit separation anxiety. These are the dogs who are truly scared to be alone. And I'm going to show you poor Emma the Beagle, my little girl, before we helped her overcome her fear. So here we go. And that's the moment she peed on my couch, which I wasn't happy for anybody at that moment. So could you hear the high the high pitch of her barking, of her howling, of her crying, that it's very different than if you've heard a dog barking at the window because the mailman came by or something like that, which is usually like a lower pitch, deeper, darker kind of thing. What you heard from Emma there is a very common sound when these dogs are scared. She was looking out the window, you know, trying to where are my folks, or how can I get out? And she finally just couldn't take it and lost her bladder finally. Now Emma, and I see this a lot with dogs, and I get asked this question a lot. She would cycle through this. So if I were to let her keep going, at some point she would end up lying squished. So the sofa arm of on the left, to the left of the frog from where we're facing. She would line herself squished against that with her head kind of looking towards the door, which is away from that window. And she would stay there for a good 10 minutes or something, not crying, just lying there quietly. But then it would all cycle back again. And so if your dog is doing all of these kinds of things, eventually Emma got to a point where she was chewing the door frame. And so if you're seeing that kind of behavior, but then your dog finally settles down, I would still consider that a serious issue that we want to resolve, and not just say, well, she eventually calms down. If she's going through all of this prior to that, then, you know, let's help resolve the problem. There is a method that we use in psychology to help anybody overcome their fears, and it's called systematic desensitization, which at its basic level means we're going to introduce the thing that scares them, but at a level that is not scary, and we're going to increase it little by little as long as the dog is still not scared. How do we know if the dog is scared? We're looking at the body language, and we're looking to keep them underneath this fear threshold line, under the green line, right? We don't want to see the tense body, licking lips, yawning, all of that stuff, because that is the precursor to it's all going to blow. So how does this work? We use the same method to help people overcome their fears. I'm afraid of spiders, to the point where I honestly would not be able to survive having a picture of a spider. So there's the insert for our spider that I cannot look at. I would do the same thing if I wanted to get over my fear of spiders. I would have to figure out, how far can I be away from a spider without feeling any fear whatsoever? You know, my heart's not racing, my blood pressure's not up, my eyebrows aren't lifted. I'm absolutely totally fine popping chocolates, drinking my coffee, reading a magazine. As long as I feel comfortable at that, we can move me closer and closer and closer, but only if I'm feeling good. And when I start to feel the tension, we have to back me up until I can feel safe again, and then move closer. So that's what we do with dogs. With any fear, we have to find that point where they're not scared, and we read their body language to do it. And then we build from there. So in order for this to work, we have to make an agreement with our dog and say, all right, I'm going to teach you that there's nothing to fear. And in order to do it, I'm not going to push you farther than you can handle. I'm going to keep you feeling safe the whole time. So great news. We can successfully help most dogs overcome their fear of being alone, right? But the bad news, the gold standard method for doing so is to not leave the dog alone longer than he or she can handle, which can be really challenging. I mean, you know, Emma she couldn't handle being home alone for more than a couple seconds when we first started her training. Which meant that we were finding creative ways with pet sitters, with daycare, with my husband working from home sometimes, with me working from home, to not have Emma be pushed to stay home alone longer than she could handle. So we were starting in the seconds and we had to build from there. Now she can stay home alone 6, 7, 8 hours. The only thing that makes it shorter is that we never find that we have to stay out that long, or we need to get back to give her medications or she has to go to the bathroom. But she's not scared anymore. And when we started, it was, 2 seconds maybe. Okay, but here's the exciting news. If there is a silver lining to the coronavirus lockdown, it's that we are actually all home now. And those who didn't have the ability to work from home before and had to go to the gym and go to the grocery store and stuff, well, now we're all finding ways to do these things without actually leaving our home very much. We can, for the first time ever, most people on the planet can do this training the right way. I mean, can we teach dogs who have separation anxiety how to be alone while leaving them alone sometimes? Yes, in many cases we can. It usually takes a lot of medication, partnering with veterinarians to do this. And there's some other tricks that we can employ. But the fastest route to getting your dog over these fears is to just not leave them alone and to do the training. Okay, so let's get down to it. First, let's talk about if your dog did not show signs of separation-related problems before the lockdown. All right, you've had your dog for years, no issues whatsoever, your dog's totally fine. Great, awesome. Carve out the time most days of the week to leave your house. If that means that if you're in a place or in a situation where you cannot go someplace else, you have to stay on your property, can you drive your car? Just go for a drive. Can you just sit in your car? Can you go for a walk or go for a run or a bike ride without your dog? Peloton is offering 90 days of their digital membership right now, and they have these amazing classes where you have your earphones in and you do an outdoor run or walk with somebody telling you, okay, sprint, and music's playing. Okay, go back to a jog or a walk, or, okay, high knees, run with high knees, so you're out by yourself, but you feel like you're in a group with a class and there's music. And so I highly recommend that if you're looking for some excuse to get out of your house, away from your dog, check out Peloton. I am not getting any money from Peloton. I just love them. And it's free. Okay, another thing to do. So your dog's always been fine. Great. You're working from home. When you are ready to go sit at your desk, do your normal departure routine. Grab your bag, put your shoes on, grab your keys, put on your jacket if you have it, then go over to your desk and do your work. Let's keep these guys used to hearing these sounds, seeing these things happening, so that it doesn't become a trigger down the road. You can also train your dog without leaving your home. If you've ever worked on a downstay in class, awesome. Build a stronger downstay. You can use his safe haven to do it, and give him a Kong when he's in there, and then go sit in another room while he's there, 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, come back, let him come out, and he's had some alone time. Again, use your normal departure process and go to your home office rather than leaving. Let's just give these guys some normalcy to our leaving the home. And remember, watch your dog's body language. We may be seeing some wacky stuff now, so just be on alert and just watch it now before it becomes an issue, if it does. It may never. Just be careful. Now, if your dog did show signs of separation-related problems prior to the lockdown, whether your dog has been successfully trained or not. So if your dog did have, pretty severe separation anxiety and we resolved it, and you haven't left him or her alone at all in the past few weeks, then let's go back to basics a little bit just to be safe. So even if your dog just prior was fine, but used to have separation issues and you haven't left him alone a lot, let's do some training. If your dog is totally new to your home, then let's do this stuff to teach them coping skills before it ever becomes a problem. And if your dog is showing signs of distress now, obviously. So if your dog never had issues before, like on the last slide, and you go ahead and you leave and suddenly you're seeing behavior that you didn't see before, that's fine. Go to this slide. We're gonna work on training them. How I do it is when I work with my clients is I set up a spreadsheet for them every single day. And the white column is each exercise that they have to do. In the gray column is the notes that they write to me so that I know what the body language looked like. And I can figure out the next day what I need to do for them. I recommend doing 30 minutes of training a day. That's all you need to do. If you've got tons of free time and you want to do a couple training sessions a day, totally fine. Just make sure you take a big break in between them. Make sure before you do it that your dogs have had an opportunity to go to the bathroom, that they're not hungry. Let's set them up. Let's help them be feeling relaxed from the start. You're going to do each exercise and then come back and sit down someplace and wait 30 seconds to 90 seconds, someplace, varying up in between around that each time. And you're going to watch your dog's body language. So if you see through this, what's happening is first we start out just opening and closing the door, not leaving at all, just open the door, close the door. And this dog, Luna, followed, went straight to the door. Didn't whimper or anything, but did follow. So we want to see if we can get that following to stop. So we're going to back up and go even easier. Just going to open the door an inch. And she's following to the door still. So we're going to keep going. And now we're going to do I'm mixing things up a little bit easy, a little bit harder. So this is the dog who's been working for a while, so we can play with some other stuff. Maybe we just do a partial step through the doorway. And you see she continues to follow to the door, follows to the door. When her mom actually went out and closed the doors, the first time we saw Luna lick her lips. So now we're going to do something easier because she told us, yeah, that was a little stressful for me. So let's back up. And so we just open and close the door. On the next one, let's test it again. She steps out, she closes the door. This time, Luna stayed where she was. She stood up, but she didn't actually go to the door. So you see, we're starting to see, she's starting to get it, right? By the end, as we keep going, we finally get to the very last exercise. Mom steps out, closes the door. Luna stays down the whole time. When her mom came in, she got up and followed Jay to wherever, followed her mom, whose initials begins with J. But during the training, by the end of it, she got it, it clicked. I've made some samples for you guys. So very first day kind of stuff. Just turn the doorknob. The next time, walk to the door, but don't touch it. Maybe, a couple times later, we open the door an inch. So we're really just teeny tiny things. Dog's gonna follow. I would bet my mini on the first day, maybe even for a few days. But if you stay under the dog's fear threshold, if you watch to make sure, okay, I got to do this so easy that she doesn't stand up, so that she doesn't follow me, and you will see it happen if you focus on keeping it under her threshold. I like to grab departure belongings one at a time. So for this second dog, a second example here, this dog we can already lock the door, but we haven't yet worked on putting on a jacket or putting on a purse. Maybe the next day, if the dog does really well on this, the next day we go ahead and, okay, let's add in putting on your jacket. On this third one, this is a really advanced dog. We're only going to do a handful of these warm-up exercises. And they're, pulling out of the garage, waiting 30 seconds, that kind of stuff, grabbing all belongings for each exercise, and then leaving. Let me go through this a little bit more. So some things to think about when you're training your dog. The warm-up exercises, so all of these all of these items until we get to the very last row, right? Those are all warm-ups. Those are the, you know, like I'm a singer, so those are the vocal exercises that I do before I walk on stage. Nobody wants to hear me do my vocal exercises on the stage, right? They only care about my performance. When you train your dog, you're building to this very last thing. So that's why we can gradually get rid of warm-up exercises. You'll see your dog little by little get more comfortable, stop following you, not lift his head up, ears don't pull back, eyes aren't wide or dilated. You'll see the dog just relax. And as they get relaxed more and more quickly, you'll be able to do fewer and fewer warm-up exercises. And then eventually you won't do any warm-up exercises. You'll grab all your belongings, exit, lock the door, drive away, walk away, whatever it is that you do. I want to talk to our foster parents for a moment. You guys are amazing. And I felt very fortunate this year with HRA. I was able to work with one of the foster dogs who was a rescue, who had just a horribly sad beginning. He was found in a basement. He had been a victim of probably dog fighting, and he was just a mess. He also had some, I can't remember what the virus was or something that meant he had to be quarantined. So this guy went home with a foster who was also an emergency vet tech. So she was able to work with him. He was stuck in a bedroom all day long, every day, you know, except for a couple times out to go to the bathroom because he couldn't be around other animals at risk of getting them sick. He kind of like our COVID, right? And so we had to use all of these things that we have talked about today to give him so much enrichment through toys and through activities and all this kind of stuff in that room so that he could handle being alone. We were able to take him from an absolute panic, diarrhea everywhere, you know, chewing to get out of his crate, barking and crying like mad, within seconds, to he was fine for hours being left alone. Then he had to go to another foster. He wasn't able to stay in that house for various reasons that weren't his fault. And so he went to another house, another foster from HRA, and the first or second day he was having difficulty being home alone. So I got on the phone, got on the computer and said, let's do some of the training that he did before. In one day, we were able to work on exercises like I just walked you guys through, and he was absolutely fine. He was totally fine. He was having problems where he was urinating in the house, but we realized that that was a physical issue from a medication he was taking, and it wasn't anxiety. So that is unfortunately, you know, one example. We want to work with more fosters and really see if we can build this into a program that's going to help more dogs transition from home to home. But it gives me so much hope to see a dog who was really behind the eight ball so much be able to succeed not only in one home, but so quickly in a second home. And so when you guys hand off the dogs to their next family, you know, I encourage you to share what you work on, all of it, the enrichment, whatever it is that you are doing, all the training that I know you guys do, whether you work with me or work, you know, or just stuff that you do on your own for all kinds of behavior things. Share that with the family. I would be happy to talk with the family as well. If we can transition, I'd be happy to talk to them about what kind of training we do to help these dogs succeed. We can't guarantee that the dogs are going to be fine, but we can help prepare them to better succeed in their next home. And they're probably going to need a little bit of training, but hopefully they don't need as much training, that we can really help them be better prepared to succeed. And for everybody else, my dream is that when we bring new dogs into our homes, we don't just think about house training them and shoe training them and teaching them to sit and all that kind of stuff and teaching them to come, but we also do some alone training to give them the coping skills to feel safe being home alone from the start. Dogs don't have an innate sense that keys jingling is a scary thing. It's only because the keys jingling lead to being left alone for X many hours that they become scared of that sound. So let's not scare them before. Let's just not scare them from the start. Let's make sure, let's read their body language, make sure they've got this, and build them up the time to be alone. So we have this opportunity now, and I'm really excited that so many people through this webinar and other webinars are wanting to do what they can now to help new dogs in their homes and older dogs in their homes. To sum everything up, I'm gonna let my little buddy Cooper tell a little tale. If it works.
At first I was afraid, I was petrified. I didn't get why Mom was suddenly always inside. My daily naps were now cut short and sneaking on your bed was done. There's no more barking at the mailman. What's a dog supposed to do for fun? But now you're home, and it's pretty fun. We played fetch for 7 hours in the backyard in the sun. I get belly rubs and treats. I never have to hold my pee. I don't know what a pandemic is, but it sure is good for me. So let's go. Let's walk out the door. We've already had 4 walks a day, and we'll probably do 3 more. In a time of stress, you can rely on man's best friend. And while I hope the world recovers, I'll be sad when this all ends. On the bright side, the pets will thrive. Every day that you are here with me is the best day of my life. If you stay, I won't eat all your shoes. I'll even stop the indoor poos. The pets will thrive. The pets will thrive. Hey, hey. At first I was afraid.
No more Cooper. All right. Any questions? We've got a few. Alexandra, you're going to come on as well so we can do question Q&A together?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
Right.
You want to read them out?
Yeah. So we've got some really great questions here. One of them is, if you have gone too fast with crate training, are there ways to start over to make the crate your dog's safe haven?
So I don't know how you feel about this, Alexandra, but it would be my preference if the dog has had any if the dog has been scared or whatever, I'd probably get a different crate.
Me too.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's once they have a negative experience with it, I'd start over.
And Tracy, with the goal of the crate training with the safe space, safe haven, is it that you're going to be able to eventually close the dog into the crate? Because there may be other options like, you know, closets or like we had a dog that just loved one of our little closets. And so we ended up making that her safe haven, but we didn't ever close her in. Is the goal always to be able to lock them in?
You know, it depends on your lifestyle. So, you know, we actually are thinking about doing a little bit of restraint, for lack of a better word, in our home. Emma the Beagle feels very safe in my office. And she just sort of found it on her own. This is her safe place where she goes when we leave. She lies on the couch or she lies in her bed. And what we're going to start doing is putting a gate at the door. So that, and training her to feel comfortable with that gate there, so that when workmen come in or, you know, we have too much company, she's got a place to have some space and some quiet. She hasn't had that, and it's very stressful for her. She loves people, but it can get overwhelming. So I like having some way to be able to keep your dog restrained for emergencies or for, you know, situations like that. But you don't have to do it. It doesn't have to be used for that, but it's a great thing if you can.
I got it. Okay. So the first goal is just to make them love the area. And then if you can use it to contain them later on, that's an extra added bonus.
Yeah. And again, doing it, once again, doing it in a non-stressful, going at a slow enough pace that the dog feels really comfortable. I'm not going to just put the gate up and then invite people over and be like, stay in there, Ems. We're going to teach it little by little by little.
Okay, great. Here's another question. My dog tends to either sit by the door when one of us leaves. He can also smell us in the hallway if one of us leaves while he's out, which causes him to bolt out our apartment door. We were told that he had separation anxiety when we adopted him in October. He's gotten better, but during this time, he seemed to be acting more anxious than normal, licking his bowl a lot, pacing, etc. He doesn't bark, seriously, not at all, ha ha ha. How can we make sure that he's getting what he needs?
For him, I would do training. I would start at the basics, and I wouldn't leave him alone longer than he can handle it. What I see with dogs who bolt out the door, by starting out the training at that little tiny level of just walking to the door, not touching it, turning the doorknob a little bit, doing those kinds of things, opening it only an inch, the dog sees, why do I keep following you to the door? Nothing is happening. And they eventually, it's like they give up and they're like, I'm comfy on the couch here. I'm not going to keep following you. And suddenly you can open the door and stand in the hallway and they don't fly anymore. So it sounds like since you're seeing stress and he's, we know he's got a history perhaps of it, that's going to be important to do that training. If you're not doing food, toys, and all that other enrichment stuff, I would add that in for sure. I really believe that there's so many factors that can contribute to why these guys struggle, that let's just help all of it. And that, food toys is such an easy, it's no harder to set the food in a snuffle mat than it is to put it in a bowl. So it's not harder on us to do it.
That's a good point. What about when practicing leaving the dog alone? Should we always leave Kongs or other enrichment toys out at the beginning, or try to do it sort of on and off?
Honestly, so if we have a dog who is scared, right? We know that we need to do desensitization training on this dog. I usually do not use food toys for the training for a number of reasons. One, dogs who are scared oftentimes will not eat anything, so it doesn't help. Two, dogs who are scared who do eat might be distracted by the food, and then eventually the food runs out and suddenly they're terrified. And three, I want to teach these guys to be really relaxed, so that when we do the training and when we leave, that's their cue. Oh, now's the time when I take a little snooze. I'm going to lie here peacefully and nap. And so, a dog like Emma the Beagle, who relaxed so beautifully, I do not leave her with food when we leave the house, because I don't want her getting amped up. I just want her to chill. She gets tons of food toys the rest of the day. I do have dogs who have just a ton of energy. And once we can get them up to like 20, 30 minutes of them not being scared, then we start bringing in food toys so that they have something to do as well, so they don't get bored. So I tend to do most of my enrichment stuff when I'm home, when my clients are home and the dog is there, with them.
That's super helpful. Thank you. Here's another question. My dog is whining at us while we work. Thoughts on how to mitigate without teaching him that it's okay?
I would use food toys. I would think, and I'll let you take part B of this, Alexander, after I say it. So for me, I would say, okay, my dog is always like wanting attention and stuff when I'm working. So I'm going to use that time as one of the food toys. So for instance, with Emma, she doesn't just eat twice a day. Like we started out, she would just eat her meals twice a day. But when we started using enrichment food toys, we realized that we could divvy the food up throughout the day and give her enrichment opportunities. So we measure out her food in the morning. If I've got an important conference call and I know it's a time of day when Emma gets hungry or wants attention or whatever, I will put some kibble in her monster ball in my bedroom and let her go and do that. And when she's done and I'm on my call, she will then just go to sleep. So strategically using food toys when you need the dog to not be on top of you is a great way to approach it. And what else would you recommend on that one, Alexandra?
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I would definitely say that the other thing that might help is giving a very clear signal to the dog and being very consistent after you've given that signal that you are not going to respond to them at this time. Because I've just seen in my own family, you know, my father lives with us, and the dogs, they always want attention from him because he's so responsive to their every single bark or, you know, whatever it is that they want to do at the time. It's not that they're not getting what they need. Generally, we're still providing that overall enrichment, but you know, once that's been taken care of and that's in play, I think dogs learn very easily that some people will get up every time you paw at them and other people won't. And so they tend to go to the ones that they know they can get the reaction from. So if you can have some kind of a signal, like maybe a scarf that you put out, maybe you put your dog in there, you know, if they can be alone successfully, put them in a crate with a Kong. The crate is kind of the indicator that it's downtime now and I don't want you to be barking at me for things. But definitely, yeah, the two of those together should really help.
Cool.
All right, great. What tips do you have for a dog that shadows you throughout the day? She follows you into other rooms and will lay in that room while you're working.
Okay, so if she is, so a lot of dogs will shadow, right? I've got, let's see I can't see the screen, but can you guys see Emma the Beagle?
Mm-hmm.
So she will usually find her way someplace nearby to hang out while I'm working or while my husband is working. She's no longer afraid to be left alone, but she just likes to be around us, and we like to have her around us too. So many dogs do shadow, do follow, and aren't actually scared, and that's okay. But if that following, if that shadowing is oppressive, or if it's just one sign of the fact that this dog is scared to be alone, then the desensitization training will, if done correctly, in most cases, reduce that. So dogs who, I see it all the time, dogs who are constantly sitting on their people or following everywhere, when they go through this training protocol, suddenly somebody will text me and be like, oh my God, is she okay? She didn't like come and join us on the couch tonight. She stayed in her bed. And I'm like, hallelujah. You know, like she's learning. You know, yesterday Emma was in the room here working with me, and I went to go do some other stuff, and I just wasn't even thinking of her. I came back a few minutes later and I realized she never even got up or even like looked at me, and I was like, mentally healthy dog, you know, where she used to be like physically touching us. She had to physically touch us every second of the day before that. The safe haven training, food, toys, downstay, all that kind of stuff is a great independence training option. That's why I'm really pushing this stuff. It's a win-win. It gives the dogs something to do with their day, with their lives. And at the same time, we're teaching them, you do not have to be touching me or sitting next to me to feel happy. Look at you eating your snuffle mat for 30 minutes in a totally different room than me, and you don't even care. It just happens organically that these guys gain some independence by those.
Great. What is a toy that you would recommend for a heavy chewer that we don't have to steadily watch for alone time? We give him an antler, but sometimes pieces break off and I'm not there.
Yeah.
I'm concerned that he would swallow those pieces.
What are your thoughts on that, Alexandra? Like a Kong wobbler, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely Kongs that are stuffed would be a good idea. I think Himalayan yak chews are pretty safe, but I would also say talk to your veterinarian because they may have more detailed opinions about what to do with your dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, bully sticks, all of those sorts of things are good. And then if you have toys that are for chewers, like there's those Kong Tough toys that are for hard chewers, those can be better than your average toy where you can pull out all the stuffing, and maybe ingest that. Just things that things like that is what I would say. Okay, here's another one. My dog's safe haven has been his bed with his blanket. I move it around the apartment depending on what I'm doing. Should I stop doing that and find a permanent place for the bed?
I think I would. For this alone time goal, for this independence goal, see how it goes. If it doesn't work and the bed itself, if that stresses the dog out and just the bed, no matter where the location is, gives the dog the sense of calm, then okay. The only worry is, down the road when something scary happens and you're not home, does the dog still feel like I needed mom near me to stay safe? So I think in a perfect world, I would locate one spot, but if it stresses the dog out, I either would say, let's just go with making the bed wherever it is, his safe place, or creating another safe spot separate from this bed, starting over. So you can still have that bed that's where he goes when he's hanging out with you or whatever. But now we've got a true safe haven location in the house with a different bed.
Great. Excellent. So many great questions here. The dog crate safe haven training video is of a very large crate for a very small dog. Thoughts on size of crate related to size of dog?
For house training purposes, we need to keep the crate, pretty small so that the dog doesn't hopefully have accidents in there. For safe haven, I think it's as big as your dog is comfortable and as big as you want it to be. Doesn't have to be small. You can put a blanket over the crate to make it feel a little more quiet in there. But I think it's really your preference. Emma the Beagle would not feel safe in a smaller crate, in a larger enclosure, because she does have confinement issues. In a larger enclosure, she's totally happy. So it depends on the dog. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Alexandra?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I would just say the reason that we don't want the crates too big during potty training is because sometimes they will pee in one area and sleep in the other. So as long as you've gotten that taken care of and your dog is potty trained, then you don't really need to worry about it as much. Great. If we live alone, do we need a camera to track our dog's body language when we begin leaving for short periods of time?
Yes, but there's ways to do it without spending money. The only way we know how our dogs are doing is by watching their body language, right? So if we walk out the door and close the door, we need to be able to see them. So there are ways to do it for free. You can FaceTime if you have a couple different, phones and tablets and stuff. You can FaceTime or Skype, set something up and watch from that. You can do a Zoom. Everybody in the world is using Zoom now. If you set up a free account, you can use Zoom for 40 minutes in a session. So especially if you're just starting out with your dog, you're not going to be doing it more than 40 minutes. So perfect. I like having a video camera in the house just so that I don't have to do any kind of setup. And when I first started doing this, it cost hundreds of dollars to get video cameras. Now you can get them for like $30, $25 on Amazon. There's a product called Wise, WYZE. I really like. Furbo is inexpensive. So you do want to keep an eye on them at the beginning. Like, we don't watch Ems anymore. When we leave her, she's fine. But when we're training her, yeah.
Yeah, we use the Wise cams all over.
Do you?
Yeah, we just love watching our dogs. So. Great question. Let's see. In working through separation anxiety training, is there a number of times you would want a dog to experience a particular action with no stress before moving onwards to a more advanced step?
What a great question. So if we're going by the book, if we're playing by the rules, if you do 5 sets of your dog being able to handle 10 seconds and he can do it 4 or 5 times, then push to a little bit more time. If he only gets it right like 3 times, then I would repeat again. If it's less than 3 times, then I would back up and make it a little bit smaller. That said, these dogs figure out patterns really, really well. They are smart cookies. So if you do the same series of absences and leave the same amount of time every time you do the training, they can figure out the game and then become more scared. So you want to mix it up. And so, you kind of look at a week, say, okay, this week we're going to work on, let's say this week is he's okay around 5 minutes. So let's noodle around 5 minutes. Maybe one day we'll do, we'll end with like a 3-minute absence. The next day we'll end with a 7-minute absence. The next day we'll end with a 5-minute absence, and kind of look at trends over the week. If you're seeing that you get home, within that 5-minute time or that 3-minute time, and he's not even getting up from his bed the entire time, and you do that a few times during the week, move on to the next one, push a little bit farther from there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, great. All right. We've got some more questions here. Is there a way to train a dog to play with or enjoy non-food toys for when I go back to work? And also, it sounds like the dog is deaf and 12 years old.
Gosh, I have so many questions about this one, asked by Tracy, and I am Tracy. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind going to the chat box or to the question box and filling in a little bit more, what I want to figure out is, does the dog not play with non-food toys ever? Like, is this we're trying to teach this dog to play? Because that would be, I would suspect there might be some health or anxiety issues that are keeping the dog from playing if that's the case.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's a very it's a question with a lot of possibilities. So,
yeah.
I guess there are other chews that don't have as many calories too that you could potentially give them. There's like Nylabones, things like that. Or if you have a dog that enjoys food more than just regular toys, there are toys out there where you can hide food inside them. So you can get them to want to engage with the toy that way. So yeah, those are just general ideas. But if you wanted to email us at training@humanerescuealliance.org, we can definitely help you out more there.
Okay, cool.
Here's another question. Our dog has always been fine being alone. One new behavior we've noticed during quarantine is that his startle reflex during sleep has been a lot stronger. If he's napping near us and we move, he sometimes snaps.
And that didn't happen before.
Yeah, would you think that that's some kind of anxiety building up?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, usually I find that dogs who, let sleeping dogs lie kind of dogs, usually that's not something that develops over time. It's usually a pretty ingrained behavior. When something like that happens out of the blue, it could be anxiety. It could be that they're feeling some stress from what's going on. It also could be that there's a health issue. It makes me wonder if maybe the dog is feeling a little pain somewhere and being moved. They kind of jerk when they wake up and then it hurts. I think we need to like kind of dig a little bit deeper into that one. But I would work on. I think I would really focus on making sure that there's routines for the dog and food, toys, and all this kind of stuff. Try to rule out the anxiety aspect of it that, is just being home in the lockdown, stressing this dog out. I would try doing those other kinds of how do we improve the welfare of the dog overall and see if that helps.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alexandra?
Yeah, I agree. I think definitely if you have the ability to go to a veterinarian or do some kind of observation with a vet, that would be a good idea. And also moving the dog to have more quiet time,
Yeah.
If they are getting really nervous about lots of sounds and things, then trying to make the area calmer in general for them, and then seeing how that affects them if you can.
Yeah, I mean, you could even try like a thunder shirt or something. Some dogs, I have one client right now who this dog cannot settle without a thunder shirt. So it doesn't always help, but it can. So something like that might be worth trying. I hate to tell people to like go out and buy all kinds of stuff, but I think you can return a thunder shirt if it doesn't help your dog. So that might be something to try if she's feeling anxious overall.
Great. Why is there a difference between a place a dog chooses to go when they're scared and the place you make a safe haven?
I think it's just the association. The researchers out in England who have sort of who are pushing the importance of the safe haven. I think they have found that the dogs aren't feeling safe going to that scary place. They have a very negative association with it. It's just where they're going, and so we want to build a place that's filled with coping skills. That's only a positive for the dog, so that they feel better overall.
And if they're feeling scared, then they could go to either place. Is that the idea?
I mean, if they're really, really scared, they're probably going to go to, their reaction may be to go to that scary place. What I would then do is calmly help them, lead them to the safe haven that we're creating, and be there with them at first. Give them comfort, sit nearby there, help them learn that during scary times this is a safe place for me, and then over time you'll be able to not have to be there with them in that.
Great. Okay, and I think we just have time for one more question. We have somebody who adopted a Beagle Jack Russell mix from HRA in October, and he gets really excited when her fiance comes home. He starts jumping up 3 to 4 feet in the air, nipping at the fiance's jacket and fingers with his teeth. He doesn't seem to be mean or angry, but just very excitable. It takes him a bit to calm down, and this is new. He's always been super excited to see his favorite people, but nipping is new, and she thinks it could be related to anxiety. Any suggestions to help this dog settle?
You want to take this one?
So I guess my first question is, Tracy, do you ever see this kind of behavior with dogs that have, and I guess that they're so excited when somebody gets home because they've had anxiety about it?
Well, it's interesting. We do, it is a normal reaction for dogs to get super excited when their people come home. It's commonly seen even with dogs who are not scared. And I see it when we do the training at the beginning, when we're really teaching these dogs to chill out in those early times, up to 20, 30 minutes or whatever. We usually see that all of that excitement goes away when people come in, because we're at such a low level that the dogs are like, yeah, whatever, I'm still snoozing, I'm fine, hello, glad you're back, but I'm good. But as we build up in duration, the dogs look more like normal greeting behavior and start getting more jumpy and maybe mouthy and stuff like this. And so we have to redirect them. It could definitely be that that anxiety is in play. We wouldn't know until we looked at some video of what the dog looks like alone, or I'm guessing it's when you guys are home and just the boyfriend comes in. So watching, is the dog sitting by the door now more than he used to? Is he whimpering? That kind of stuff. So if we're seeing that those kinds of things are happening, then I would start doing some training. If it's just super excitement, happy, pro-social dog, then I pass it over to you, Alexandra.
Yeah. So, if it's just an excitable reaction, then I would definitely try to redirect it into a more appropriate behavior. So maybe have him, if he has any toys that he really likes, teach him, toss the toy so he can go get the toy and bring it back, just redirecting it. Because right now it's kind of just coming out all over the place. You could also try dropping some treats when the fiance comes in, so that the dog's directed towards the floor rather than jumping up. And then also, if you needed to, put the dog on a leash so that he's learning he's not going to get attention from the fiance unless he is calmer, and rewarding that behavior, that calm behavior, with treats would be a better idea. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead, Tracy.
I was going to say that we help, so ours is a beagle, right? Emma the beagle. She does get very excited when we come home. And the way to help her decompress is to let her sniff. So our routine when we come home, whoever comes home, because she's super excited, we grab some of her kibble, we go into the backyard, we scatter it in the backyard, and she sniffs around the yard for her food. And then she's perfectly calm and quiet after that. So giving her, you could do like a snuffle mat or something, just some way for the dog to get some sniffing out, can diffuse it.
Yeah, sniffing is great for nervous energy, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy. This was just a totally awesome webinar, and a lot of people have already said so on the chat box, so we really appreciate it. We are going to send out a PDF of the presentation today for your reference. And additionally, if you'd like to make a donation to the organization and the speaker today, that will be in the follow-up email as well, or you can go to humanerescuealliance.org/training donation, and that's all one word and lowercase. So take care, and we hope everyone stays well.